What's up, guys? Danny Carlson. This is the Actualized Freedom Podcast, a no bullshit podcast about selling on Amazon and lifestyle optimization. My guest today is Ed Rosenberg, the founder of Amazon Sellers Group TG. That's an Amazon Sellers Group with over 130,000 messages that provide support and information about important Amazon updates and changes. He also has a YouTube channel with well over 100 videos. There's like 140 videos on there or something like that now. He's also a compliance and suspension specialist for many of the top 200 sellers on Amazon. So all Amazon sellers know that Amazon suspensions are a really hot topic on Amazon, one of the scariest things about being an Amazon seller. So Ed has a ton of really good knowledge there. So let's just start out with, what is your story here, Ed? This is a pretty interesting niche to be in the Amazon space. There's not a whole lot of people who have as much experience as you when it comes to, one, communicating with sellers, and two, helping them on the compliance issues, the nitty gritty. Like, people don't really know too much about this stuff. So how did you get involved with this?
Okay, first of all, thank you for putting me on. And quite simply, the way I got involved is I myself am a seller online for over 20 years. Starting with eBay, one of the first sellers on eBay, and Amazon, 12, 13, 14 years. And I was suspended myself on Amazon, and I couldn't believe how powerful and how impactful a suspension can be. It's almost worse than an IRS audit, and it's just one company from somewhere across the world just deciding to just shut down your business. No names, no signature, no faces, no one to talk to. And I got really intrigued in learning about suspensions. So first of all, I sort of got myself back on with a template I got from somewhere. But I figured the best way we can learn about suspensions is if we all get together and we all communicate. And together, even eventually with Amazon, you can sort of like figure it all out, because, I never really thought Amazon is doing this just, because they don't care about people. It's definitely not the case. It's just they're trying to police an open marketplace with millions of people, with a lot of bad actors. And unfortunately, a lot of times, good people who are good sellers get caught, and a lot of times good people that are bad sellers get caught. And where I try to fit in is to try to help good sellers do good things and differentiate between the good sellers and the bad sellers, and try to help the good sellers. So that's how I got involved in this.
So I'm guessing that, correct me if I'm wrong here, that over time you kind of got seen as the authority of how to avoid suspensions, how to get reinstated and everything like that, just based on you creating this group and you being involved in this community for so long?
Right. So I would say the Facebook group, the Amazon Seller Performance Facebook group, we really took off. I think we're at 23,000 members, and it's anyone involved in suspensions, and it's all top sellers are in it. And I don't know if I'm considered the authority. I definitely did not make myself the authority, but because so many cases came to me eventually, I've done so many that I try to answer wherever I can. But it's a very real issue, and when I started, I saw the people involved. I thought that they're just like so gloomy and doomy and it's so depressing, but unfortunately, it's the truth, and you really, really have to be ultra careful when selling on Amazon that you don't get suspended. It does not take much to get suspended.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. I've been suspended before myself, actually, and it put a really big stick in the spokes of my cash flow. I had to hire a lawyer and just had made big inventory purchases and new products and stuff like that. So it's one of the scariest things for sure. So I want to jump right into one of the most hot button issues right now on Amazon. I recently saw a post that you put out talking about this a little bit. So much uncertainty about review sweeps. Tons of big sellers are getting their reviews just totally wiped out. And then their reviews come back and then they're taken off again. no one really seems to know exactly what's going on. So maybe you could shed a little light on what you've seen is happening with the review sweeps.
Okay, so I think what happens with Amazon enforcement is like they're not sitting there necessarily like watching every step you take. But let's say every 6 months, maybe an article will come out, or for whatever reason something is driving it, and they'll focus on a certain issue which is abusive on the platform, and they'll clean it up. And what they're doing the last month is focusing on the reviews. I know there were some articles that came out. A lot would drive these enforcements is the press. So if an article comes out saying that you can't trust Amazon reviews, they're going to clamp down. And what they do when they do these sweeps is they're very, very smart. They use the smartest people in the world. And they work everything focused from the buyer experience. So they don't necessarily have a very specific and clear rubric. In other words, they'll say that they don't allow review manipulation. Well, what does that mean? Am I allowed to have my neighbor do it? Am I allowed to do a few reviews? Is someone down the block allowed to buy it if you put it anyways and leave an honest review? They don't really tell you that. But what they do when they do these sweeps, and what they did specifically now, is they didn't necessarily look at the tactic of what people use to get reviews. They would suspend you for that if they noticed that you're in a Facebook group, right? They would suspend you for that.
But just being in the Facebook group, not even
no, they would have evidence. What happens is when they suspend you like for reviews, in order to get reinstated, they want you to snitch. So they'll say, what Facebook group did you use? Who did you buy from? And the only way you're gonna get reinstated is if you give them all this information. Now they can then take that information, and they know that, okay, so this Facebook group is hot, and then they can start putting things together that, okay, anybody that has a review from 12 out of these 50 people, chances are they're in that same scheme, and they'll suspend that person. So they get a lot of information from sellers when they're suspended and they try to get reinstated. But the vast majority, from what I can tell, of sellers that got suspended for review manipulation is what they did is if you're listed against an item or multiple items with too much abuse, why? Very fishy, very strange. It must be that you probably did review manipulation because you have an interest in listing against those items. So if you have, if you're listing against, 3, 4, 5 items and you're the cheapest and there's review manipulation against that item, they'll assume that you were involved. Now, they won't necessarily have evidence that you did it, but let's say an average item for every 1,000 views has let's say 5 purchases and 1 review, right? Let's say that's the average. If you have an ASIN that has 200 reviews out of 1,000 views, clearly something was done. The fact that technically you may have figured out a way that it's not against terms of services doesn't make it so. It's still a bad buyer experience.
It's still a red flag there. That absolutely makes sense. But so what about for people who are good actors that they have a lot of legitimate reviews? Let's say they have 200 reviews on a product that they know are legitimate. They didn't actually buy them or do any shady Facebook group stuff. A lot of these sellers are still seeing these reviews wiped. So there's a lot of conflicting reports, like reviews that are getting wiped that are legit, and then they're able to get them back somehow, and then they're wiped again the next day. Do you see any rhyme or reason to what's going on here? And do you know of if a seller has had their legitimate reviews wiped? Is there any action they can take to contact Amazon about this and get it figured out?
Yes. So just because a seller says or thinks it's legitimate, and maybe there's nothing in the TOS which they can point to, or a lot of sellers consider legitimate reviews because they say it was impossible that they connected us. But their methods are so advanced that just because you think it's legitimate, that doesn't mean that it was legitimate. So a lot of the sellers that have told me they had legitimate reviews wiped, their reviews were actually not legitimate. They just didn't think it was possible to get caught, and Amazon figured out that they were gaming the system. So that's one. Sellers that have done nothing to manipulate reviews, they're just selling it. So they, Amazon, a lot of times they cast like a wide net, and they sometimes bite too deep. And in this case, I don't know what internal systems they use, but it seems like they took off a lot of reviews, and then they put many back when they realized that they were being too aggressive, however that worked. But if a week passes, 2 weeks passes, and you're 100% sure that your reviews are legitimate, you can email, I can give you the email. There's a community-help@amazon.com, or I'll double check that. You can find that email. There's an email address.
Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes there, community-help at Amazon or something like that.
Yeah, I'll give you the exact email, and you can try to make your case. Say, look, you've been selling it since 2015. You have 45,000 sold. You have 200 reviews. Every single one legitimate. And sort of like a POA, like a plan of action. And if you can make a case, it's not easy, but if you can make a case, so then you could get the reviews reinstated that way.
And so for sellers who maybe do have a bit bigger of a budget, is this something that you can assist them with, Ed?
Yeah, I can try, but I can tell you that the vast majority are going to fail because their systems are so accurate that they're going to look at it like the evidence is overwhelming. And like they trust their system so much that it takes overwhelming evidence to get around it. That's why if somebody's suspended for related accounts, they don't tell you who, they don't tell you how, they just assume that they're right and you're wrong.
Yeah, this is, I guess, where people need to be honest with themselves. And how honest are you really getting those reviews? How honest are you in your practices there? Another interesting thing that I'd really like to hear from you, Ed, is just some examples for the audience here of how easy is it to get a suspended account reinstated in different situations. So let's just get an example of like a really easy account reinstatement versus a really difficult one. Just so people can kind of understand potential dangerous situations. Okay,
so that's a great question because a seller just hears my account is suspended, but an average seller just means that they cannot sell. They're not interested in stories. If they're suspended, they cannot sell. They can't keep their business. But within like my world and Amazon enforcement world, there's a huge difference between one type of suspension, which is really just sort of like a fine, and a suspension where they don't want you back and you're in real danger of never getting back. So the easiest, I would say, are ODR related, like late shipping, which is not exactly ODR, but things which are on your account health, late shipping.
Oh, so what is ODR for the audience here that doesn't know?
Yeah, the order defect rate is negative feedback, A to Z claims, and chargebacks. Now, sellers have gotten so good that the vast majority of sellers, especially if you're doing FBA, are close to 0%. There's no reason why you should ever get a chargeback. And negative feedback, many of them you can get off, and you shouldn't be getting too much negative feedback. Years ago, like when I was selling, it was like a normal thing. You would fight with the seller, with the buyer, you would argue, you would say the guy's a crook, but every seller knows that you're not going to win, and there's no point in fighting with one seller, so with one buyer, I'm sorry. So most sellers, you just give in, and it's not worth it even if you're right for $20, you just give it in and take off the feedback. So very few, ODR should never happen to professional selling. If it does happen, your data is right there. Amazon gives you the information, and you can generally get back with a plan of action pretty easily. There's no risk. There's no major risk to Amazon by letting you back. No one's going to sue Amazon if they let you back. No brand is coming after Amazon if they let you back. So I would say things related to, little petty things which can happen in the long term, late shipping, a chargeback here and there, negative feedback, you can definitely get back the first time, even the second time, probably even the third time within a year. You can eventually get back. That's the easiest. Now, there's a long list of things in between, but I would say the other side of the spectrum are things that put Amazon at risk. And what's that is a forged invoice. Forged invoice is extremely hard, if not impossible, if you really forge the invoice. And the reason is if you forge an invoice, and you really did, and they let you back, let's say because Ed Rosenberg begged them to let you back, and then 5 years later, there's an article about this seller that they sold counterfeit, and they do an investigation, and it turns up that Amazon knew this seller forged the documents. How can you believe them? Everything that this seller is selling is counterfeit, because Amazon knows that anybody can go on Fiverr and create any invoice for $5. So if you forge an invoice, so you're putting Amazon at risk, and at that point, it's almost impossible to get back. Another thing I would say, which is really at this side, is something as if you sell real counterfeit. If you're buying from Alibaba and it's real, they call it confirmed counterfeit. Now, confirmed counterfeit doesn't mean that the Supreme Court said it confirmed it, but it means that someone did a test order and gave a 20-page PowerPoint, and there's overwhelming evidence that the item is counterfeit.
So this is if you're like selling a Nike set of shoes and it's not a real Nike set of shoes, for example.
Yeah. That's so. Then you put in the Amazon brand at risk, and that's you have Nike, the brand, after them, and that's really risky. Now, not to be confused in between if the customer complains that it's fake. That's a total different thing than when if the brand complains with evidence that it was fake. Well, if Amazon does a test order on their own, they see it's fake.
Yeah, so not like in an A to Z guarantee when a customer asks for a refund, they get to choose between 5 options or whatever. It's not that. It's like the actual brand has to reach out and provide evidence that it's a fake item and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, yeah, exactly. There's a major difference. People think that one customer can shut you down, and it's really not true.
Excellent. And then so what would be on the more extreme end, like the accounts that are extremely difficult or near impossible to actually get reinstated? What does that typical scenario look like?
Right. So like the forged invoices are very hard. They're off the brand complaints, but also impossible ones are like the review manipulation the second time. So people think the plan of actions are a joke, that hey, this worked, okay, I'm back. But they keep track of how many times you're suspended for the same thing. So you could be suspended over a couple of years, 5, 6 times, and still keep getting back. That's already a lot. Let's say 4 times and keep getting back. But if it's twice for the same thing, they operate like in teams, and if the same team sees that you're not getting it, and you made all kinds of promises the first time to the second time, it becomes extremely hard to get back. So repeat offenders of the same thing becomes very hard.
Yes, that hopefully it gives some good clarity for the Amazon sellers out there, and a little bit of peace of mind, hopefully, as well. And my last question for you here, Ed, is maybe just a quick overview of your top 3 tips for avoiding Amazon suspensions. What are just 3 really clear, actionable things that Amazon sellers can do to avoid any of this drama?
Okay, so it depends if you're on private label or if you're selling branded items. My number 1 tip by far, not even close, is really like number 1, 2, and 3, but my number 1 tip is to be educated and informed. And really the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to be in the seller performance feedback Facebook group. I don't know if you can put a link on the video.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes and video description here.
Okay, but so if you're informed about it, about what they're after, so you can proactively prevent it. For example, many sellers got suspended now for market market pricing things unfairly, and what that was if you sell an item for $10, and then you sell a multi-pack for $25, so it's $12.50 each. So you don't really know that's against policy, but if you're on the Facebook group and you see all of a sudden people are getting suspended, boom, you can quickly fix it. And if you're not in the first wave, you can fix it. But that's number one.
Yeah, guys, and like I follow Ed's group. He's got probably about 5 solid posts a week of just really good information. Always on top of the latest trends, the latest things that you should be paying attention to on Amazon. So I totally recommend going and checking out this Facebook group. It's totally free to join. The link's going to be in the show notes. So we'll keep you updated. And so what is number 2? Sorry for interrupting.
Right, so, no, that's fine. So number 2, I would say, is having everything you sell backed up by invoices. And the way, and it's once you're conscious about it, it's really not that hard. Even if it's store receipts, generally they've been pretty good lately at accepting store receipts. So I would say to have everything backed up by invoices.
Is that from your manufacturers or your wholesalers, like whoever you're buying the product from?
Yeah. There's a big misconception out there. People think that they have to buy from an authorized dealer. That's completely false. You have to sell an authentic product. As long as you have proof that the item is authentic, then you can sell it on Amazon. The problem is if you buy it from a guy who comes to your corner in a minivan and he gives you a paper receipt, and then Amazon Googles the address and sees that it's a pizza store. So that's unverifiable and they cannot accept such an invoice. But if you buy from a legitimate supplier, so then those invoices are accepted. You just have to prove that you got it from them. And number 3, I would say don't sell junk, because even if you have invoices and you don't want to be in that situation where they are going to accept my invoices, they're not going to accept my invoices, try to sell good stuff. Then it should be a good buyer experience. And if you're selling a completely authentic item but the product reviews is 2.2 stars, you have a very good chance you're going to get too many complaints and you're going to get suspended. So again, keep your invoices. Very important. Do not sell anything if you cannot prove that it's authentic, should Amazon ask. But proactively do not sell junk. Don't sell headaches. And Amazon, as a general rule, and I'll say this is my last tip, don't be a headache to Amazon. Even though you can prove that you're right, if everybody is complaining about you, saying that it's fake, they're not going to be a court and decide with evidence who's right. They're just going to say, have a nice life.
Yeah, those are some super valuable tips here, guys. Make sure you review these ones. This could be worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to your business in a lifetime. Imagine you're selling $50,000 a month on Amazon and you're suspended for a month. That's $50,000 of sales that's not happening. And meanwhile, you have all of these expenses to pay and, all of this inventory and stuff like that. I know, Ed knows, we've been suspended. It's not very fun. So if you can avoid it, it could be worth a lot of money to your business. So thank you so much for being on here, Ed. Definitely check out the show notes for this one, guys. If you're watching it on a video, the top 3 tips with the bonus tips for not getting suspended, what's really going on with the Amazon review sweeps. And make sure to check out Ed's Facebook group. That's the Amazon Sellers Group TG Facebook group for the latest updates on what's going on with the Amazon updates, avoiding suspensions and stuff like that. So once again, thank you so much, Ed, for coming on here, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.